All right, so apparently it is time to begin. Hopefully people are here, and I'm going to be here trying to be a cool person telling bad jokes the entire time, because I'm really not good at them at all. And apparently I can hear myself in the stream, so I'm going to mute that. Okay, so today's going to be over terrain and materials. Pretty self-explanatory stuff. Well, maybe not terrain. Materials pretty easy. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go up near the toolbox and insert a part. And probably one of the easiest things to do is just look at your plastic, or go to a material. There's going to be brick color, and then material. Default is plastic, and we'll just go through them from the start. Bricks. There's cobblestone. Concrete, corroded metal, diamond plate, fabric, foil, glass. Now, glass is a pretty new one, and it actually has some unique properties. When you look at it, it looks a little scratched, and unlike other materials, it can affect how you view things. So I'm just going to insert this free model barrel right here to illustrate. And if I make the glass a little bit transparent, like say 0.5, you can see through that there's a distortion to things that are behind it. For example, the barrel. A little difficult really to see it, I guess. You can see it mostly in the base plate, so I'm just going to delete that. You can see it mostly in the base plate. There's a little ripple to it, because the glass is not a perfect surface. Yeah, you can see it mostly when you're zooming in and out and getting closer and farther away from it. And you find out how really distorted it is if you were to fly through the glass. But it's the only material that really does anything like that. So it's pretty cool. So now I'm just going to take this part, make it small again, put it back at a transparency of 0, and we're going to continue on. So there also is granite. Pretty popular choice for countertops and stuff. Grass, probably look better if it was maybe a green or something. You have ice, which probably best to look at from this angle due to the sunlight, but as you can see, it's all scratched up and stuff, and probably more to a greater extent than the glass is. Marble, again, great for countertops, maybe floors. Metal has scratches too. Great for metal. That's kind of self-explanatory. As I said, the material part is really easy. Neon, if you ever want a really glowing sign, or I believe I talked about this last night, make it look like it's brighter than it is, use neon. Pebble, it's supposed to be pebbles, but it doesn't really look like pebbles, being honest. Plastic, default one. Sand, good if you want to just manually have maybe a beach or something and you don't want to do terrain. Slate, another popular one, good for rocks. Smooth plastic is like plastic except there's no bumps. It's just a really plain texture. The normal plastic texture has bumps on it. Wood. So wood's one of the textures you got to be careful about as a Roblox developer. There's this great plugin called Fix Wood Grain Direction made by Wood Grain Reviewer, and it lets you fix the wood grain, because if you don't fix the wood grain, your game's going to get a bad review from a very important person. So always keep your wood grain in mind. Same goes with wooden planks. Wooden planks, my biggest complaint is that these look worn, they look used, they look older. There's not really an option for any slick wooden floor, and the best way to get that would really be to use just the normal wood texture, and then have like slats of that. And there's nothing really to materials. There's no other special properties or anything. That's it. So now that one's out of the way, the big meat of this tutorial is going to be in terrain. Now, if you go up to the tab at the very top, you'll see Home, Model, Terrain, Test, View, Plugins. Of course, we're going to Terrain. For the sake of this, I'm going to teach you what Generate does. And we're just going to generate the default, what it lays out. So you click on Generate, a little GUI will pop up, and then you scroll down and you click Generate. And now there's progress. You could see that it is making something on the map just randomly. One of the things you can do in this GUI is you can change the map size from small, which is 128 studs by 128, to massive, which is 1024 by 1024 studs. You can do a seed, like if you wanted to have a seed that said Minecraft, that's how it works. And if someone else used the seed saying Minecraft, they would get the exact same generation that you did. Caves checked means you can have it generate caves under the surface. Biome size selects the size of biomes. So if there's water, marsh, plains, hills, dunes, canyons, mountainscapes, lavascape, and Arctic. And there's nothing really unique about them other than the material that they use. So I'm not really gonna, well, except for the dunes do have a special shape, but it's not really enough to cover. It's just something that you go through and just look at, because the only real difference is, again, in the texture, except for the dunes. Because if I were to have, I'm just going to select dunes and maybe canyons and show why. So I'm generating again. Let's see if we can get some decent sand dunes. Who knows? If I remember right, sand dunes we're supposed to have, yeah, they have a sand dune shape, which is something that if you tried to do with the terrain tools would be a massive pain. So if you're wanting to do sand dunes like a desert, generating it is probably the best option. It saves a lot of pain. And then canyon also usually will look something like this. Moving on, there's the add property, which is to the right of generate. So I'm going to move over here into the planes. Here you could see, you could select your size. You could make the size bigger or smaller. You could choose the strength. You can make it really strong and difficult to work with, or you can make sure that the strength is really low, so it just kind of barely does anything. But this is the add. It's not the. I'd actually say that you'd probably barely be using add in a sense like this. One thing you'll notice is that there's also the shape. So you could change the shape of what you add. So if you wanted to have a more just square, I mean, congratulations. It's a really easy shape to get. You'll also notice under that you have plane lock, snap to grid, and ignore water. So what ignore water does, if we move over to the river, is if you were to, okay, probably not the best because we're actually just drawing and it's replacing the water. It's going to be better to show for paint, but usually it ignores the water, so it leaves the water alone and you can do whatever you want around it. Snap to grid. So you've probably noticed that there's a grid around your cursor and your terrain shape. And when you change your camera angle and you change what it goes up against, you could change whatever grid you're on. So if you were to look straight down at the ground, you'd have a flat grid. That'd be easiest to draw a shape all on one level. So as you can see, whatever I'm drawing, even though I'm using the circle terrain, the middle of the terrain isn't going to be uneven because it was all painted on one plane. So if we go down here and we look across it, it's all very flat because I was snapped to a flat plane because I was scrolled out and I was looking down at the environment as I did it. However, the only issue is that the plane can be higher or lower depending on where you start. So if you were to move closer to the water, you'll see that you might have the grid clipping into the ground a little bit. Well, that's because the area around there is actually sloped down a little. Move away and you move more towards the mountains, you'll see that it's a little higher ground, so you'll see more of the grid. And starting from two different places, it's clear that there's actually a level difference in them. Selecting auto material means you'll whatever you make will be whatever material is over what you're doing. So if I were to make more terrain right here, would be grass. However, without even selecting anything, if I were to make more something in the desert over here, it's just going to be sand. And it goes by however they have the terrain marked. Rock, it's going to be rock. Yeah. Moving on to subtract, it's the exact same as add, except you just remove land. So you could just erase like you have an eraser. Oh, and as you could see, there was water there. This little sharp area where there's water, it was covered up by the land. And that's because we have ignore water on. If I were to turn off ignore water, you would see I would erase the water too. But with it turned on, it just ignores anything that's not water. So if there's water there, then water's where it will be. This is good for if you want to cut out a river. Just fly above, snap to a plane. Boom. You have a easy river shape. I also kind of cut into this mountain for fun. Again, selecting shape means that you can cut out a square or you can cut out a circle. strength and size do the exact same thing as add. Paint is one you'll be probably using a decent amount, especially if you're doing things by hand like we do in Astral Hearts. We didn't generate any of the terrain, we did everything by hand. So what we did for a lot of places, so if it was by a riverbank, we'd take it, we just paint sand. Or usually we'd have a kind of JRPG look to it, so we also would do a thing where we just surrounded it with rocks. That kind of makes it look like it's its own standing freeform little island here. And you can go between these by at the very bottom if you have auto unchecked, which it doesn't even let you check out on this. You could just select different materials. So if you wanted to change this mountain here into water, here I'm going to turn off plane lock so you can see that. This mountain is now like a massive tsunami wave or something because I'm just painting it water. Ideally, I hope you would never do this. Plane lock does the same thing. It only lets you paint on a certain plane or wherever you start. Plane lock is something that it's hard to teach. It's more something that you have to play with and get used to, because even after using terrain tools a lot, I still have to get used to plane lock because it's the weirdest thing to have, but it's also one of the most useful things to have. Snap to grid as well. Yeah, it's just another strange system. Other materials, there's also ground. So ground is good if you want that kind of dry dirt look. And I actually use this a lot for paths. So say you wanted to have a path from, I don't know, right over here to just like over here or something. It's really good. And then you could take something like leafy grass, other things, you could take the mess with the strength. Maybe take a really small dab of mud every here and there. I don't know. And you get this kind of organic-ish looking path. But that's just by mixing materials. Moving on, there's, of course, more materials. There's also sandstone, which you can see over here, used in the canyons. So whatever is used for the canyons is this kind of cracked dirt, like you would see in Arizona. So it's just that's what your sandstone's gonna look like. Slate does not look like the slate material, if you remember, on the in bricks. It looks very different. So the slate material for terrain looks very smooth. I usually, if I want to make a rock, I just use rock, because, or unless I just want to have a defined shape, or if I want it to look wet, because there is a very specular look to the slate texture that looks like probably would fit more in a wet cave or something. Snow looks like well, it looks like snow. Sadly, I know you might want to have thick snow that you could be knee deep in. That's not how the material works, sadly. I really hope there's something like that someday. But for now, it's just what you see is what you get. It just looks like snow that's maybe an inch deep or something. Mud. I showed this a few minutes ago. That's what the mud looks like. Looks like mud, of course. Brick one of the most useless textures, in my opinion, for terrain, because I mean, this is something that you'd probably rather be using bricks for, as in parts. But yeah, there's also this brick option. It makes it look more voxely like Minecraft when you use it. Same goes with concrete, except for concrete has these little triangle smoothings to them, kind of mimicking the old terrain before smooth terrain. Again, concrete is probably something that you'd normally be using bricks and materials for. Glacier is like really, really blue snow. It's kind of, uh, yeah, it's just really, really blue snow with hints of ice through it. That's all it is. Wood planks, another one you'd most likely be using parts and materials for, because once again, that's just some bad wood grain. If you ever use this, you probably have a very angry wood reviewer knocking on your door. Lava, everyone's favorite. It's really cool to use in caves because it just looks dark and ominous. That's what lava looks like. It actually, uh, here, let's cut a hole in a cave. So I'm just going to use a tool I haven't showed you guys yet. I'm going to turn up the strength. I'm going to erode in there. And so I'm going to paint in this little cave that I made some lava. And as you can see, the lava actually has a kind of a glow to it. While other materials, like if I were to put a big thing of grass in the middle, you can't tell that's grass. It just looks like darkness. But all around that, the lava, the streaks of it actually have a glow to them. So it's a really cool effect to use in the dark. It's almost like an inverted Eye of Sauron. Another cool thing to use near your lava would be your basalt. This is great for maybe a destroyed battlefield or an area around a volcano. Ice. Ice is, of course, supposed to be used with glacier and snow. They've actually improved this texture since the last time I looked at it. It looks really good. This actually looks really way different from the last time I saw the ice texture. So I'm going to give a quick example actually on using a mixture of textures. So we have this little ice mountain here. Say on the other side of this mountain, it's a glacier. Now, this glacier looks pretty bad because, you know, glaciers have water in them. However, you'll usually notice that on top of things, like, for example, a mountain will have a slate texture on the side, but on the top it's going to be grass. Because grass usually doesn't just grow on the side of a mountain. So it's usually just going to be grass up here. It's the kind of same idea that I approach a lot of things with. So on top of the mountain, you're not going to have just solid ice. It's going to be snow. It's going to be a snowy mountain. And then you can lower your the size of your terrain, and you could paint the finer areas. So anything that might look like it's a ledge, just paint snow there and it will look a lot better. So like right here, snow, okay. Or if it looks like it might lead down, just have snow lead right to the ground and draw around it. Right here, you could probably get a better place to show it. So like on every lip or something, you could have snow. Doesn't look as good because the ice is just that great now. But right here, for example, great place. There's a big chunk, just put snow there. Looks a lot more like you put care into the environment when you do something like that. If you just pay attention to how things like snowfall, how grass grows, it can really change the look of the game a lot. Uh, moving on, there's salt. Um, I don't know why you would use salt. I guess you could. Uh, I really don't know what salt would be used for, except for food. There are things such as called salt planes. I'm not really sure how high the demand for making a Roblox salt plane is, but apparently it's in high demand because they made a texture for it. But I'm just gonna move on to something more useful. Cobblestone. I prefer using this to the cobblestone material texture. Probably the first time I've said that in this tutorial, but this is great for roads and cities and stuff. And it looks great with shadow map turned on, because then all these little bumps and such, the cobblestone actually has a bump map, but it's just not very noticeable in the current lighting system. Limestone. I'm going to go to a mountain for this. Limestone is kind of like what you'll see in a desert. So, say you're in a desert and you have these little desert walls, all that fun stuff. Self-explanatory. You could switch. You could make sand on the top if you want to. The limestone does actually look pretty good. The sand looks really dark in comparison, but that can be changed, and we'll get to that soon. There's also asphalt. So if you wanted to make a terrain road, though I'm not really sure why you'd want to make a terrain road. Leafy grass. I talked about that earlier. It's great for mixing with dirt and normal grass. But leafy grass is grass that has leaves on it. So if you really don't want to put a bunch of bricks for leaves or a bunch of other things, you just want to make it look like some leaves have fallen under your tree, use leafy grass. Pavement, another one I find virtually useless, but that's what it looks like. The grow. So the next tool is grow. It's to the right of paint. Sorry. Grow is something I use a lot more, and you can adjust the size, strength, auto material, or you can select a material, just like the add, uh, the add tool. So if I wanted to just go over here, and I could draw a shape. If I hold it in place, it's just going to do this and move towards my camera, which looks really weird. But at the same time, it's a pretty cool thing to use. So for example, I were to stand right here and I were to grow out right here and lift up, I have built an arch in the environment. I don't know, I just love little over arches. They're pretty cool in my opinion. But yeah, grow is way better than using add, because it grows things out of the environment naturally, and it just, in the end of the day, it will look better if you use grow and instead of subtract, using erode. So erode lets you just kind of, it's the opposite of grow, of course. You can see it just kind of smoothly goes away, so you can control it more. Switching between the two, you can get it how you want it. Switch over to paint. Make my brush size smaller. Like paint some grass on top. But maybe if I want a rock right there, I'll paint a rock right there, and then I'll grow a rock right there. And that's a really quick way to get decent looking terrain. Use grow, erode, and paint. Smooth is if you have inconsistencies in your terrain. If you want to just there you could adjust the size and the strength of it. It just makes the environment look smoother. Like if I were to go over to this mountain, for example, you could see it just really smoothens it out. Makes it more like a flat plane, I were to guess. If I were to assume. So that's what it looked like before. Right here. That's what this little mountainside looks like right now. And then smoothing just completely destroys all that detail that made it pop out, and it makes it smooth. Probably be one of the tools you'd want to use if you were going to actually try to manually make sand dunes, is the smooth tool. Regions. This is an incredibly useful tool. So we have our desert. We're going to fly over here to where we were doing the lava and stuff, so we can go back to the desert. Regions is a really interesting tool. So you have select, move, resize, rotate, copy, paste, delete, fill, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Select, it lets you draw a shape, a selection area in the terrain, and it lets you select the terrain. Move, if I were to say move, you get kind of what you get when you pop up on the move, and you can just move that selected terrain around. So as you can see, I made the shape of like a perfect little square that goes all the way down to that pit because I have all this terrain selected. And whatever I do with the terrain, it automatically merges with whatever's around it. So even if I were to take it over here to our mountains, it doesn't look like these just are out of nowhere because it smoothens between them. Resize, same thing like a brick resize. You can make this selected area bigger. You can make that selected area smaller. So you can make that entire area, that big chunk, really thin, and then just insanely bumpy, and it doesn't look right at all. Rotate lets you rotate your terrain. Because some crazy stuff if you were to rotate terrain. So maybe you want these sand dunes going completely up and down, or if you want to make just a massive wall with whatever terrain you originally had flat, you could just use rotate to flip your terrain on its side, or you could use it to flip your terrain completely upside down. One of the most useful... Oh god, I've made that thing a mess now. Hold up. Just Control Z until it's back in its spot. Okay, now it's back in its place. One of the most useful reasons to use this would be, say, I want more sand dunes. Simple as that. I want more of these things. Bigger desert. select your area, copy it, paste it, move your selected area, and you have more sand dunes. You can paste it again, and that selected piece of sand dunes you have can move around. You could also take an area, I don't know, here in the middle of the sky, and you could fill the area I have selected that I'm not sure Liz can see, and select a material, and boom, I've filled it with sand. That's an easy way to get something floating or to fill on the spot. Or it's also really good if you want to have a basin of water. So select this area right here. Yeah, she did it. But I'll let you do something like that very easily. Now I believe we're almost done. One of the last things that we're going to look at as far as terrain goes is in your Explorer on the side, you'll see the workspace. Now go from, you're not going to click on workspace, you're going to go to terrain. So in terrain, if you scroll down, you'll see watercolor. You can change the watercolor to green or yellow. It's kind of gross. Red, blue, light blue, whatever you want. Black, white, doesn't matter. You can change whatever you want to the watercolor. You can make the water more reflective, and it's already at max reflectancy right now, or you can make your water have no reflections or little to no reflections, and it just kind of looks dull. So high reflections, no reflections. You can make your water very clear, very transparent, or you can make it very strongly that color that that you have selected. Clear, transparent water does look pretty nice, though. Not gonna lie. Water wave size can make it so it's really calm day. Can make it so the water distorts more from its original form on the surface. These aren't going to be like big tidal waves that you see in the ocean. These are just wavy waves like you'd see in an audio visualizer. It's easy to see from this view. Yeah. So that's what the maximum wave size looks like. Great for oceans. You can set the water wave speed too. So yeah, now it looks like the water's really moving and just bouncing around. It's an angry ocean right now. Or a hot tub. Take your pick. Doesn't matter. Calm it down a little, because next we're going to go to, you're going to go up, still into terrain options. I accidentally skipped past this. Material colors. Now, I'm actually going to scroll over to where we were messing with ice and lava earlier for this, because we already have a whole bunch of material laid out. So you could change the color of any material that you have. So say I wanted to change the color of ice from this blue color to green ice for whatever reason, or yellow ice, red ice, whatever you want. You can, this is this is a very new feature. Change the lightness, the darkness, unusual looking ice, but hey, it's ice. This was added literally within the last month and a half or so, or a month. Again, it's a very, very new feature. to be able to change things like this. Uh, we could go among all this limestone and look at the leafy grass. You could change the grass color. You could change the color of your limestone by just clicking on it and selecting something different. And that's, or at least for now, that's really it with terrain. So I think we've covered everything. Are there any questions? Water flow. So do you mean, let's see. So sadly, with water, what you see here is really just about all you can do. You cannot change any flow direction. You cannot set how much it looks like it's moving with water. However, that being said, if you were wanting to make a waterfall or you were wanting to make rapids, they added beams recently, and beams can do this very easily. Someone even made a plugin for it, which I believe I downloaded. Yeah, so I'm just going to make a waterfall right here using the plugin real quick. But something like that is the easiest way to simulate water flow, because as of right now, at least the making of this tutorial, there is no way to simulate a directional flow of water in the just in the terrain itself. Anything else? Okay, well, I guess since there's no more questions, that's gonna be it for tonight. All I can really say now is just practice a lot with what you know. Use the tools to your advantage. It does take practice to get used to. It's not the easiest or simplest thing at first, but you can do some cool stuff. So good luck, everyone. I'm gonna sign off now.